Good afternoon, everybody. Christine Barconi here in the NBC4i Streaming Center for Week 3 of Buckeye Breakdown with Coach Bill Conley, Sports Director Jared Smalley also joining us, and digital sports reporter Justin Holbrook also here with what Jared said a few minutes ago, the most important news of the day.
There's nothing more important than what we're going to talk about right now. I don't know, what you've been streaming, on your computer or your phone. You've been following the tweets and whatnots today. Clearly, this is going to be you know what? Let's all take a 30-minute break. You know what I mean? Let's all
good idea.
Let's all just have a moment here of levity and enjoy this conversation about something that is not that is scarlet and gray focused, not red and blue focused. How
I'm
about
excited to have about 20 minutes of that before I flip back over
before
to the
you
other
start
side.
panic tweeting.
I've been a tweet consumer. I wasn't on social media last night. I was jabbering for 3.5 hours.
That's right.
Jabbering. And I mean, Justin was like, is this woman ever going to be quiet? They delivered water to the desk and everything. So
they're dropping off refreshments like you're a marathoner.
Yeah, I mean, no joke. I got chocolate and water. It was fantastic. Anyway, so we're talking about Rutgers. They are coming to town this Saturday for another prime time matchup, which is exciting at the Horseshoe. Jared, Coach, Justin, what did Coach have to say yesterday during his press conference? I didn't get a chance to listen to it for whatever reason.
A couple quick things about that, and then Coach, I want to get your thoughts on it. Obviously, there was a tremendous amount of growth between week 1 and week 2, and that was a big part of what Coach Day discussed yesterday. And Coach Conley, obviously, I know we talked about that Saturday night after the game as well, that there were specific ways in which you could measure the growth from week 1 to week 2, and not just, hey, they played a better opponent, but they did play better in some very specific areas. And I think the one that stands out to me most, Coach, is up front. I thought offensive line, for the most part, had their way. They had obviously a much more consistent run game against Penn State than they had against Nebraska. All the linemen graded out as champions to the coaches. And I think you saw the evidence of what we thought could be going into the season of a line that represents what the strength of the football team might be.
Absolutely. We said first down run was going to be really important in this game, and they did that. Our first down production was really good. Master T did an exceptional job of hitting the holes faster, ran the daylight, and ran through arm tackles too. But the offensive line, let's face it, they played an outstanding game. They didn't get as much backside penetration as they did last week. They got better push at the line of scrimmage. And we also said one thing they had to do was pass protect, give Justin Fields time to throw the ball, and they did exactly that. A+ for the offensive line.
And one thing we should say, by the way, if you have some questions or comments for us, if you're watching us on Facebook Live, Christine's going to be sorting through those here, and we'll be happy to address those as we go through here. Justin, I think the defensive concern for Ohio State leaving the game, you have a give and a take here. You have a defensive line that put on an extraordinary performance. Tommy Togiai with 3 sacks. Jonathan Cooper spent the day camped in the backfield. They were, as a unit, outstanding. They kicked some butt. They did a phenomenal job. But on the back end, there were real concerns. I mean, Shaun Wade's as good as anybody has, and they gave up some yards and some scores and some phenomenal. Sometimes the guy just makes a great play, and that's with Dotson from Penn State. He just made some great plays. But on the other hand, they got beat fairly consistently on some different types of routes. So I think if you're looking at the defense, Justin, you kind of have a little bit of a give and take in terms of how you feel about how they played.
It was really a tale of 2 first halves, too, because if you look at it in the first 30 minutes, Ohio State only gave up 29 yards passing, but by the end of the game, they had given up 285. Part of that, and maybe very concerning for the rest of the year, is losing Cameron Brown with that torn Achilles. Ryan Day announced that at his press conference. So you obviously have 2 veteran guys, the juniors and Shaun Wade and Sevyn Banks, but after that, you've got a lot of young guys that are going to have to step up in his place, because we saw in that second half, once they kind of lost Cameron, they kind of lost their way in the secondary. But like you said, up front, solid. So if they can keep a team like Penn State under 50 yards rushing, I know they were without their 2, best running backs, but they still have a solid offensive line. So if you can limit teams to running the ball, then your pass defense benefits, right? Because then you kind of know what's coming at you. So yeah, it's going to take a lot to get those younger guys developed in the secondary, but at least that next game is against Rutgers.
Sure. Bill, question for you about that exact topic. With a player as good as we know Shaun Wade is, having some moments like that, that he would love to have back, and then also having a player on the other side who just went out and look, sometimes you tip your cap, right? Sometimes a guy makes a phenomenal play on you. The question is, how consistently does he make those plays on you? If you're
You're exactly right. I mean, let's face it, those 2 receptions were fantastic.
Yeah.
Those were great plays. Ball bounced just right on one of them, especially. They made a great one-handed stab. But as against supposedly our best player. So he's got to play better at that. But let me tell you my concern. My biggest concern with the secondary, what I saw, was we did not close on the ball quick enough. We didn't. There's several times I thought our secondary was slow getting to the guy who had the ball. Take for example, a low option route over the middle, caught by one of the receivers, and we just didn't quite attack him. We kind of ran with him. We didn't attack him. I don't like that, because if you give quarterbacks time to throw the ball, unfortunately, our defensive line has not given quarterbacks time to throw the ball. They will take advantage of that, and they really haven't been tested. That young secondary, just like you said, has not been tested yet this year. They'll get tested this week. They'll get tested this week if the offensive line of Rutgers, and that's a big if, their offensive line Rutgers can protect them a little bit.
I don't know if you guys saw me grinning just a few minutes ago. We're reading some of the comments here. James and Joan, they thought this was an election show. But guys, now we're going to take a 20, 30-minute break to step away from election coverage as far as digital goes and talk about the Buckeyes, because they do have a home game this Saturday against Rutgers. So that's
Wait a minute, though. We were just talking about coverage.
We were talking about coverage. We're talking about getting tested and traveling and different things. But no,
look, there's transitive properties in football, right? I mean, football in many ways is similar to an election. You know, you put in the hard work before the actual event, and you get the payoff when it's over. There are things that are very similar to that. What my curiosity is, Christine, and I think, I think people are looking at this game coming up on Saturday and going, it's Rutgers.
Rutgers
Have you been paying attention?
Rutgers has a win under their belt against Michigan State.
Right.
Which obviously they aren't as good as they usually are this year, but they're still Michigan State. The whole Big Ten right now in my mind is crazy. I was thinking Penn State is 0-2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking ahead to, I don't even know, bowl game situations and stuff like that. A team that starts in the top, 15 or 10 Penn State was at the very beginning of the year. Are they going to get a bowl game this year? I mean, they're 0-2 at this point. So just crazy what's happening in the Big Ten right now. But when Ryan Day was speaking yesterday, how are they preparing for Rutgers differently this year than they have in years past when they're coming in with a decent win under their belt?
Well, I think that's the big thing, is that they already know. They don't have to strain to tell the players take this week seriously, because they can turn on the tape and show them beating Michigan State at Michigan State, and last week playing really well against a team that we know is pretty good in Indiana. They did a great job. Bill, I still don't know why that crazy lateral play was called back. I still can't find where the forward lateral was that would have made the score a little different. But when you watch Rutgers, Bill, obviously Greg Schiano's there. They're playing like a team with discipline. They're playing like a team that you would expect a Greg Schiano coach team to play like.
Yeah, teams take on the personality of the coach.
Yeah.
Greg Schiano is a great coach, and he's a tough coach, and they play like him. I mean, they're tough guys, and he's trying to turn that program around. They just keep trying. It really hasn't been very good since he left when he was there before. He took them to several bowl games. Matter of fact, he took them to over half of the bowl games they ever went to in the whole history of the program.
That's right.
Wow.
So he knows how to coach, and he's getting a lot out of them. I just don't know. You look at that Michigan State game. They pretty much, Michigan State handed them the game.
Yes, they did.
They fumbled the ball 5 times, threw a couple of picks. So, I mean, it's going to be tough to not beat somebody when you get that much given to you. But we'll find out. We'll find out how much they've grown.
Well, obviously motivation is not going to be a problem this week. Justin, we were talking about this yesterday because, when you think about, Ohio State-Rutgers game, Ohio State in the 6 prior games has averaged 49 points a game. The 6 games combined, Rutgers has scored a total of 48 in those 6 meetings. It's been, ugly one-sided football. But Justin, there's motivation there. Rutgers is coming back here. Obviously, a head coach that was here. His kid, his daughter, is still in school here, finishing up over at Academy. And Brendan White's coming back. Brendan White, former MVP of the Rose Bowl, defensive MVP. How quick we are to forget that happened. Brendan is now a defensive back at Rutgers, and from what I've seen the first 2 weeks, Justin, he looks like he did in the Rose Bowl. He looks really good.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, you lose a guy like that, and he's got all the motivation in the world to come back and win this game and tell his teammates how important this game is. But aside from that, Rutgers is no joke this year. I mean, yeah, it appears that Michigan State gave the game away, but then Michigan State went into Michigan and beat them in Ann Arbor. So obviously, Rutgers didn't just win, some random game against some random team. They're a very talented team. They played Indiana hard last week. So it doesn't feel like the Rutgers of old. It feels like this Rutgers team is something to take a little bit more seriously, especially in a season that's so condensed where everything is so urgent and every game means so much that maybe in the past you look past the Rutgers team and look forward to what's next. But in this season, you can't do that because of how important every single game is. You lose one, you might have just taken yourself out of the playoffs. So really no motivation is needed no matter who you're playing this year. But, add to it that's a primetime night game against Rutgers. That'll do it.
Yeah.
Speaking of the playoff, I think we should probably touch on Wisconsin and what's happening there again as far as Big Ten championships. And again, looking down the road, what's going on? They're missing 2 games. Do those count as a loss? What's happening with them?
So it's those games that are canceled are declared no contest by the Big Ten. So they are technically a 1-0 football team. They're 1 win over Illinois. They had, as of yesterday, 27 announced cases within the program. And so I think the concern being now, can they get back and play next week? The league minimum that the rules they set at the beginning of the year was that you had to play 6 games in order to qualify for the Big Ten title game. Then there's an amended rule that says if nobody plays 6, then it's basically you go to percentages and you figure it out. It's very convoluted and complicated and not great right now. But Bill, I saw that, people are still looking at Wisconsin. If you look at the team they put on the field as one of the better teams in the country, but it's the curiosity of how will they eventually they'll play football again. They'll come back, and you just wonder how, if you're going to vote in the CFP, it's a very subjective process. And let's say, Wisconsin doesn't lose a football game, but they only play 6. Maybe they get to the Big Ten title game. Maybe they play Ohio State. Maybe they lose to Ohio State. Maybe they're a 6-1 football team that's really good, but they only played 7 games. That's my curiosity. Is I don't think we have any idea how they're going to view those things.
I think that's just what you said is it. There's so many ifs going on with this season.
No doubt.
There's no doubt in my mind, Wisconsin is by far the most superior team in the Big Ten West. And, if they come back and perform well and like we expect them to do, they should get some type of opportunity. But you don't know what's going to happen with other teams right now. So many question marks going, and it's a week by week. Actually, it's a day by day.
Yeah.
How many guys come in, how they feeling, they get tested, and so it's a turkey shoot at this time.
And that's a great way to put it. And Justin, we talked about that this week because of what happened with so when you play a night game, you have morning COVID testing, rapid testing for your team. Ohio State on the road at Penn State last week, they take the rapid tests. Justin Hilliard, the linebacker, comes up as positive. He has to go through a more thorough PCR test, which he then passes, and he's declared to have it was a false positive. But because of the Big Ten rule, he couldn't play Saturday night.
Yeah.
So, and that potentially, he's a really good player, a senior linebacker, guy that was playing a lot of snaps. That could have hurt them. And so you think about how this process, even if your guys pass the COVID testing, sometimes you run into COVID problems. And it's going to be fascinating to see how the league tries to adapt the policy throughout the year.
Yeah, and for Ohio State, it was a good thing that it was at the linebacker position where they're already pretty solid and they have a lot of experience. But let's take, Sevyn Banks or Sean Wade, say one of them gets a false positive, can't play in the game, or even worse, you have Justin Fields who gets that test. What happens from there? It becomes a very, very problematic thing when you have a position that maybe isn't as solid as others at Ohio State, and then you have to try to figure out on the fly, on the day of the game, and the whole team has to adjust. So in this one instance, Justin Hilliard, I think they're fine because of how many guys that they have at linebacker that have played a long time. But other positions, maybe not so much.
Yeah. Hey, Christine, the quarterback at Illinois, for example, last Saturday couldn't play, tested positive. Their tight end couldn't play. It's just
still a very real thing. Just a few minutes ago here in Ohio, we had 4,000 new cases yet again today. Just to put a little plug in, I will be speaking one-on-one with the governor at 3:00 about that. So trying to get some solid answers out of him as we continue to go up and up and up. And of course, we're going to keep an eye, as it is another home game, keep an eye on how campus bars and how off-campus housing the kids are, being responsible, how they are responding to the call to really keep within their tight-knit groups. I apologize if I was distracted. CNN did call Wisconsin for Joe Biden just a few minutes ago, speaking of Wisconsin. So that's what I was looking at there.
By the way, can I bring this up while we're mid-election here? Can I just bring up how bizarre it is that if you're a voter in the state of Ohio who leans a certain way, you're actively rooting for Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania?
Yeah, one way or the other.
What a bizarre table turning situation that is.
Well, I think besides sports, it just shows how much we all have in common. These our Great Lakes states, as far as really being battlegrounds for football, recruiting as well as garnering votes. We're a lot more similar than we want to. Agree to.
I think Bill would even agree. Bill, I think you would agree. No
Coach
matter,
is like, leave me out of this.
No, I'm serious. I think no matter whether you vote red or whether you vote blue, the Big Ten just runs the country. I mean, that's pretty much spot on, right?
Well, yeah, that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be.
We get the most attention.
That's right. Number one with a bullet.
Tonight the MAC runs the country.
Oh, MACtion. That's right. That? The Ohio Bobcats.
What's going on there?
No, Ohio Bobcats tonight. That's exciting.
It is.
You don't just walk out into Kelly Short Stadium at Central Michigan and expect a victory. You got to earn it.
That's right.
I can honestly say I've never played there.
Hey, Justin, I got to tell you something. I just want credit for me pulling Kelly Short Stadium. I really don't know where that came from. Yes. That's borderline embarrassing, but this is live and I can't get it back.
Trivia contest.
It's
I'm
fine,
sorry.
Jared.
I'm sorry,
fine.
Christine.
No, you're fine.
I've ruined it.
No, you're good. It's your show. I'm just living in it. I just hit the buttons, Jared. Oh my goodness. All right, so Saturday, what are you guys thinking? Do we think it's going to be a blowout as we have seen in years past? Do you guys think it'll be a little bit closer? The back and forth scoring that we saw with Penn State. What are your thoughts about the score this coming Saturday?
Yeah, Coach, you go first.
Well, I think first of all, the one thing they do have at Rutgers, they have really good defense. They're only giving up less than 80 yards per game rushing. Football's good, if not better than we did this week. If we do that, I think we got to take care of business. Don't make Michigan State mistakes and give them turnovers, things like that. I look for the normal type of Rutgers Ohio State game, about over 49 points like always. Probably more like 55-14, something like that.
Justin, what do you think?
That's about what I had. I think it's going to be 58-13. I think, like Coach said, Rutgers has a good defense, but Ohio State going to come out, send a message early on, just like they did against Penn State. Probably take an early lead and maybe get some guys that haven't played this year or played very little, some experience. So maybe they'll slow down a little bit in that second half. But, yeah, I think it's going to be about what it has been in years past.
Christine, the one thing I would say about the game a year ago, Rutgers scored 21 points in that game.
I was thinking in my head I was going to go with 49-21. I think it'll be kind of similar to last year where they really dominate the game and then they put the second string in and they score another touchdown perhaps.
Could be. I mean, I think, you're looking at an improved team, but I also think in Ohio State, Rutgers doesn't get the advantage of getting the look-over treatment because you're only playing 8 games. And they already know they're not guaranteed anything. Mm-hmm. So they've played 2. They at least have those 2. They're not guaranteed 4, 5, 6, 7. They're guaranteed this game this week if they can show up and everybody's good to go with testing. They can play the game. That means you take away that factor of, we'll mail it in this week and we'll kind of do some extra prep on, the Maryland game and the Michigan game down. No, that's not how this works now. Mm-hmm. You're getting the full treatment every week. And if you're a quote unquote underdog going into a game like a Rutgers would be, you're not getting the glance over treatment. You're getting the full Monty here. And that's not good for them because I think you saw from Ohio State in week 2 is a team that is extremely talented, extremely good, made big improvement from week 1 to week 2. They're dying to make big improvement from week 2 to week 3. And we've been talking about those areas in which they can do that. They will be laser focused on attacking those areas in particular, running the ball even better. They want to make sure they do a better job on defense, making sure their pass rush is more consistent, making sure that they're defending from the back end. I thought the linebackers actually did a very nice job from containing the quarterback run, which was a big area of growth we talked about from week 1 to week 2. So I think that's the problem for Rutgers this week, is that you don't get the benefit of Ohio State maybe having some distractions out there. They're not there. They're all in on this game. And that's, I think, the problem that's probably going to relate to a very lopsided score.
All right, gentlemen, you can stay with us for Buckeye coverage throughout the week. Of course, we'll have Coach Conley back again. Jared, you guys.
We're talking Friday.
Yes.
We're talking game day Saturday. We're talking after the game Saturday. We'll probably just talk Sunday. We'll probably play golf Monday. I don't know, Bill, you available?
Coach said he had a tea time Sunday.
I can do 2 days in a row.
Yeah, I was going to say, that doesn't exclude one or the other.
Sorry, excuse me. I should know better.
The man's an athlete.
I'm basically an Uber when it comes to driving people to golf courses at this point.
Hey, speaking of, are you busy Monday? Can you drop us off?
I'm cheaper than an OVI.
Oh, whoa, easy, pal.
Well, that's why I do it.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm glad if you have comments this season, if there's questions you have, it doesn't stop here. You can always send us a note on Facebook. Let us know what you're thinking. Maybe your own observations, things that you saw watching the game that maybe you haven't heard us talk about. We'd love to hear that.
Yeah, we want to hear more from you guys. I know I see all of our fans, Roger and Sean, we see your Go Buckeyes, but if you want to have us discuss things that are particular, let us know and we can do that. Absolutely. We love to hear from you guys as far as questions and discussions. I ask kind of basic questions all the time, but I know not everybody is proficient at football as these 3 gentlemen here, so I feel like maybe I help people out who are more on my level as far as football intelligence, because I have the 3 best here with me to answer those questions.
But I'm going to you. I'm going to turn those tables back to you.
Me?
On these election results.
Yes.
Lady.
So we just got some breaking news. CNN called Wisconsin for Joe Biden. Looks like USA Today has also pushed that out, as are other media outlets right now. So it looks like Joe Biden has.
I would know that because I don't watch CNN.
There you go. See, Coach, your knob got ripped off.
NBC4
You're only
viewer.
on NBC4, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Firmly. Rip the knob off. You don't need it anymore.
Well, I don't have cable, so I can't.
Remember when people turn their channels with knobs? Those are adorable.
What? No, I'm kidding. I've heard of it.
I'm an old man.
Oh man.
Sorry, Coach.
That hurt.
That was a true dagger thrown out there, pal.
I do remember the 90s when the clickers were really big and you couldn't lose them.
That's right, because it was half the couch.
Yeah, it was really big.
Hey, Jared.
Yeah.
By the way, a little trivia for you here.
Oh,
Do
sweet.
you know that Rutgers won the first national championship?
I know they played the first football game. I didn't know
Plastered
they
on
won
the
the first
football
national
field.
title.
Yes, and they won. They beat Princeton.
Uh-huh.
But 9 days later, Princeton beat them. The only 2 teams that played that year, so both
So the co-national champs. Let me tell you something. You know where you're going to find that information? Nowhere else but here.
Bill Conley.
I got all kinds of spies around.
That's funny. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. We really appreciate it. Make sure you stay with us for Buckeye coverage. We will do the pregame show at 6:30 on Saturday, just like we did last week, I'm assuming, because that seems like a good time
That's
for
a good
it.
time.
It's a good time for it. And then we will have postgame coverage as well with all the press conferences after the game wraps up, probably around 11:15, 11:30-ish. So tune in for that on air and online on NBC4i.com. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.